sad breaking news to bring you that two-time Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead on Wednesday.
Did Gene Hackman's daughter really reveal the truth? The world was stunned by the news. Gene Hackman, the legendary actor, was gone. At 95 years old, he and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found unresponsive in their Santa Fe home. The discovery sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Hackman leaves behind 3 children from his first marriage: Christopher, Elizabeth, and Leslie. Though he was intensely private, his role as a father was something few knew much about. Now, as the world mourns, his family is left to process the loss in silence. Authorities arrived at the scene to find no signs of forced entry, no clear cause of death. The door was unlocked. Pills were scattered nearby. Yet, there were no immediate signs of foul play. The mystery only deepened. As investigators worked to determine what happened, Hollywood reacted. Tributes poured in from fellow actors, directors, and fans. His performances were revisited, his films celebrated, and one question remained: what really happened to Gene Hackman? For days after the news broke, the world waited to hear from Gene Hackman's family. His colleagues and fans had spoken, but his loved ones remained silent. Now, for the first time, Elizabeth Hackman, his daughter, is breaking that silence. In an emotional statement, she reveals the depth of her grief. "I know people saw my father as a legend, as an icon, but to me, he was simply my dad." She speaks of the man behind the roles, the father who, despite his fame, was always just a quiet presence in her life. She explains why she took time before speaking publicly. The sudden loss, the endless speculation, and the overwhelming flood of tributes, it was too much to process all at once. She needed time to grieve, to understand, to come to terms with losing him not just as a father, but as the final piece of her childhood. Now, she is ready to talk, but not to add to the mystery or feed the rumors. She speaks because she wants people to understand who Gene Hackman really was. Elizabeth shares a side of her father few knew. He was never one for the spotlight when he wasn't on set. He liked his privacy. That's why he left Hollywood. He wanted to live life on his own terms. She describes a man who was intensely private, deeply thoughtful, and completely dedicated to his craft. But there was also the distance. Growing up, she saw her father more on screen than at home. The demands of his career meant he was often away, and while he provided for his family, he wasn't always present. He worked so hard because he wanted to give us everything, but sometimes that meant we had to share him with the world. Despite the space between them at times, their bond remained strong. She recalls late-night phone calls, moments of wisdom he shared when she needed guidance, and the quiet understanding between them as the years passed. He wasn't one to say, "I love you," easily, but he showed it in 1,000 small ways. And then, the conversation turns to why she is speaking now. Elizabeth acknowledges the public curiosity, the relentless theories about how her father died. She knows people are looking for answers, for closure, but, she insists, this isn't about the mystery. It's about remembering him for who he was. She wants to honor his memory, not sensationalize his death. She asks the public to respect her family's grief, to allow them the space to mourn without the weight of speculation. "I can't change what people will say or what stories will be told. But I can tell you this: my father lived a full life. He was happy, and he left this world the way he wanted, on his own terms, in his own home, with the woman he loved." Her voice is steady but emotional. A daughter, not just speaking about a Hollywood legend, but about a man she loved, a father she lost. In the end, Elizabeth's message is clear. Gene Hackman was more than his movies, more than his fame. He was a father, a husband, a man who valued his privacy above all else. And while the world may continue to search for answers, for her, the only thing that matters is the legacy he left behind. For days, the world waited. Hollywood had spoken. Fans had shared their grief. But from Gene Hackman's family, there was only silence. Now, for the first time, Elizabeth Hackman, his daughter, is ready to speak. In an emotional statement, she opens up about the loss, the pain, and the overwhelming attention that followed. To millions, my father was a legend, an icon. But to me, he was something much simpler. He was just my dad. She describes the man behind the fame, the quiet figure who, despite being larger than life on screen, was always humble, private, and deeply introspective. She explains why she waited before addressing the public. The suddenness of his passing, the wave of speculation, and the constant flood of tributes. It was too much, too fast. I needed time to grieve, time to understand, time to come to terms with the fact that my father was gone. Now, she's ready to talk, but not to feed the mystery or fuel the rumors. She's speaking because she wants people to know who Gene Hackman truly was. Elizabeth shares a side of her father that few ever saw. He never cared for the spotlight outside of his work. That's why he left Hollywood. He didn't need the fame, the accolades, the attention. He just wanted to live his life in peace. Even at the height of his career, he valued his privacy. He wasn't one for red carpets or exclusive parties. While others sought the limelight, he simply did the work, then walked away. But there was also distance. As a child, Elizabeth often saw her father more on screen than at home. He was dedicated to his craft, pouring himself into every role, every performance. He worked incredibly hard, not just for himself, but for us. He wanted to provide. But that also meant we had to share him with the world. Their relationship, like many between fathers and daughters, had its ups and downs. At times, the distance felt too great, the conversations too few. But there was always a connection. She remembers late-night phone calls, moments of advice given in his signature straightforward style, and the quiet ways he showed his love. He wasn't someone who said, "I love you," often, but he showed it in 1,000 small ways. Then the conversation turns to why she is speaking now. Elizabeth knows that the public is searching for answers. She understands the curiosity, the speculation, the endless theories about how and why her father passed. People want to know what happened. They want explanations. They want something that makes sense. But she makes one thing clear. This isn't about the mystery. It's about remembering him as he was. She doesn't want his legacy to be defined by the way he died, but by the life he lived. She asks for privacy, for understanding, for the world to allow her family to mourn without the weight of endless speculation. I know people will say what they want. I can't stop that. But what I can say is this: my father lived a full life. He found happiness. He left this world on his own terms, in his own home, with the woman he loved. Her voice is steady, but there is emotion behind every word. This isn't just a Hollywood story. This is a daughter mourning her father. In the end, Elizabeth's message is simple. Gene Hackman was more than his movies. He was more than his awards, his fame, his unforgettable performances. He was a father, a husband, a man who chose to walk away from the industry, to find peace in solitude. And while the world may continue to search for answers, for Elizabeth, only one thing matters now: preserving the legacy of the man who meant everything to her. Gene Hackman was a man of precision. Every role, every performance was meticulously crafted. His dedication to his craft made him one of the greatest actors of all time. But behind the legendary career was another reality: his role as a father. For Elizabeth Hackman, growing up with a father like Gene wasn't always easy. His obsession with acting, his unyielding pursuit of perfection, meant he was often away, immersed in his work. He loved what he did. Acting wasn't just a job for him, it was a passion, a discipline. But sometimes I wondered if there was room for anything else. Gene Hackman's work ethic was legendary. He wasn't the kind of actor who would show up, recite lines, and leave. He became his characters. Every project demanded his full attention, his complete focus. And while the world saw brilliance, his family often felt his absence. Elizabeth recalls long stretches where her father was on set, sometimes months at a time. There were missed birthdays, family gatherings that felt incomplete, and moments where his presence was only felt through a screen. He always made sure we were taken care of. But there were times when I wanted my dad, not Gene Hackman the actor. Did he regret any of it? As he grew older, Elizabeth says there were conversations, talks about the past, about the time lost. He never apologized outright, but I could tell. He knew. He understood that he had given everything to his career, and in doing so, there were things he couldn't get back. But time has a way of shifting perspectives. After his retirement in 2004, everything changed. No more film sets. No more scripts. For the first time in decades, Gene Hackman was just a man living his life in peace. And in that stillness, their relationship began to evolve. With no distractions, no film schedules pulling him away, they started talking more. Conversations that once felt rushed now stretched into hours. He became more open, more reflective. He was still private, but I could tell. He was finally allowing himself to just be present. They bonded over simple things: books, shared memories, the small, everyday moments they never had before. It was never about grand gestures. It was about finally having the time to just talk. And then there were their final conversations. Elizabeth speaks carefully, her voice thick with emotion. I knew he was getting older. We all did. But I never imagined how little time we had left. She remembers the last time they spoke, the weight of the words left unsaid. If I could go back, I would have told him everything. How much I admired him. How, despite the distance, I always knew he loved me. Her biggest regret? Not saying goodbye the way she wanted to. I just thought there would be more time. Now, all she has are memories. The good, the complicated, the ones tinged with both love and longing. The echoes of a father and daughter, trying to bridge the gap between them. In the end, Gene Hackman was many things: a legend, a perfectionist, a man who gave everything to his craft. But to Elizabeth, he was simply her father. A father she never stopped trying to know. For weeks, speculation ran wild. How did Gene Hackman die? Was it natural? Was it something more? His sudden passing alongside his wife Betsy Arakawa left more questions than answers. Now, the truth is finally revealed. The medical examiner's final report provides the first real answers. The official cause of death: complications related to heart failure. At 95 years old, Hackman's heart had simply given out. There were no signs of foul play, no external injuries, nothing to suggest anything beyond the natural decline of a man who had lived a long, full life. But was it sudden? Or were there warning signs no one saw? Hackman had largely stayed out of the public eye, but those close to him knew he wasn't the man he once was. His mobility had slowed, his energy had waned, and though he never admitted it, age was catching up to him. The reports suggest undiagnosed heart issues may have contributed, issues that, at his age, could have led to an unexpected crisis. Then there's the question of medication. Toxicology results showed multiple prescription drugs in his system, all of which were medically prescribed. But did they play a role in his passing? Authorities confirmed that there was no overdose, no lethal drug interaction, but the scattered pills found near Betsy's body raised concerns. Was she struggling with her own health issues? Had she collapsed first, and in the panic, had Gene suffered a fatal episode himself? It's a scenario investigators considered carefully. Elizabeth Hackman understands why people want answers. She knows the mystery surrounding her father's death has fueled endless speculation. But for her, the truth is simpler than the rumors. She addresses the conspiracy theories head-on. People want to believe there's something more, something hidden. But the reality is, my father was 95 years old. His heart failed. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't some great mystery. Still, there are lingering questions. Why did both Gene and Betsy pass so close together? Was it grief? A shared medical crisis? The reports suggest a heartbreaking possibility. One of them may have passed first, and the shock may have triggered the other's death. Could Gene have walked into the room, seen his wife unresponsive, and suffered a heart attack from the sheer emotional weight of it? Or had Betsy, unable to handle the loss of the man she had spent her life with, simply let go? In the end, there are no definitive answers to that question. But Elizabeth believes in one simple truth. I know people want a mystery, but my father's death was exactly what it was meant to be. He lived on his own terms. He left on his own terms. And that's all there is to it. For those searching for something more, she offers a final thought. If you want to know who my father really was, don't look at how he died. Look at how he lived. Because, in the end, that's the only story that truly matters. Soft, reflective music fades in. The narrator speaks with a tone of quiet strength and introspection. Life without Gene Hackman feels surreal. For his family, for those who loved him, and for the countless fans who admired him from afar, his absence is palpable. His presence, so commanding on screen, so private in real life, has left an unfillable void. And for Elizabeth Hackman, the loss of her father is something she's still learning to navigate. Coping with his death has not been easy. The weight of grief is heavy, and mourning in the public eye only makes it more difficult. Every headline, every new article dissecting his final days, every theory that surfaces, it all makes it harder to simply grieve the man rather than the legend. She admits that there are moments when it all feels too much. The constant reminders, the endless speculation, the way the world continues to analyze, debate, and discuss his passing as though it's just another Hollywood story. But for Elizabeth, it's not a story. It's her reality. Losing a parent is something you can never prepare for. Losing a parent that the world considers a legend, that's something else entirely. She understands why people care. She understands why the world wants answers, why fans feel connected to her father even in death. But what she hopes for, what she needs, is for people to remember him as more than a mystery, more than the speculation that now surrounds his name. He wasn't just an actor. He wasn't just a legend. He was a human being. He was my father. So how does she move forward? How does she begin to heal when the world won't stop looking back? For Elizabeth, it starts with remembering who he really was. The moments that weren't captured on film, the side of him that the public never saw. The father who was always a little distant, but never unloving. The man who worked tirelessly, who gave everything to his craft, but who, when he finally walked away from Hollywood, found peace in the quiet life he built. She wants people to understand that his greatest achievement wasn't just his films, but the life he chose to live when he stepped away. He was at peace with his choices. He had no regrets. And I think that's what I hold on to the most. And as for those who admired him, those who looked up to him, those who feel his loss just as deeply, she has a message. Thank you for loving his work, for respecting his legacy, for keeping his memory alive. Because Gene Hackman will never truly be gone. His films, his influence, his presence in the world of cinema will endure forever. And for Elizabeth, that is the greatest comfort of all. My father never needed the spotlight, but his light never faded, and it never will. Gene Hackman's story does not end with his passing. His legacy, one built on decades of unforgettable performances, unwavering dedication to his craft, and a quiet dignity in his final years, lives on. For those who knew him, worked with him, or simply admired him from afar, his presence was undeniable. He was more than an actor. He was a master of storytelling. Every role he took on, every character he embodied, he made it real, made it human. Even now, his performances are studied by aspiring actors, analyzed by film scholars, and revered by audiences who continue to discover his work. His influence stretches far beyond his own era. His films remain a blueprint for powerful, nuanced acting. The French Connection, Unforgiven, The Royal Tenenbaums, each film a testament to his ability to disappear into a role, to bring something raw, something true to the screen. But Hackman's legacy extends beyond Hollywood. His final years, spent in the quiet landscapes of Santa Fe, New Mexico, paint a picture of a man who knew when to walk away. Unlike many actors who struggle to leave the spotlight, he left on his own terms. There were no farewell performances, no grand last roles, just a life lived in peace. A simple existence, far removed from the industry that had once defined him. He rode his bike, painted, wrote novels. He found joy in the ordinary. And that, perhaps, is what makes him even more of a legend. He never needed Hollywood to feel complete. He gave his best. And when the time was right, he moved on. Now, as the world reflects on his life, his daughter Elizabeth shares her final words on the man behind the legend. My father never cared about being remembered as a star. That was never what drove him. He just wanted to do the work, to tell great stories, to bring characters to life. That was enough for him. But despite his own indifference to fame, his legacy is undeniable. His influence, his performances, his impact on cinema, they will never fade. He may not have sought to be remembered, but he will be, because legends never die.